Hey, what's good, y'all? It's your boy JD6 here. I'm with my man. Shout out to KC Sports Authority. Make sure y'all go check that podcast out, man.
You heard the man. And welcome back into a bonus edition of the KC Sports Authority podcast. We had a lot of views on our KU recap episode from the other day with a little bit of the Uconn preview, but there were a lot of questions about the game itself. So I'm going to do a quick little episode here just as a further dive into the KU versus Uconn preview, which comes up here in just a few hours tonight. It's a top 5 matchup, number 4 Uconn in the field house against number 5 Kansas. And like I said, there were a lot of questions about some more aspects of the game itself. So I thought I'd dive in a little bit further into this matchup here on the podcast. Again, my name is Keegan Russell. You can find the podcast on Spotify and YouTube. Thank you to all of you that have liked and subscribed so far to the podcast. We are getting a lot of attention, and I'm really thrilled about that. So thank you so much. But let's dive into this matchup. Kansas versus Uconn. Uconn, the defending national championships, of course. A fun game we've got planned tonight where the last 2 defending national champs are facing off. And Uconn, like some of you have said in the comments in the last episode, very good team. I know we didn't dive in that much in that episode, but just to reiterate some of the points made in the comment section, Uconn is one of the best teams in the country. There's no question about that. They are an elite team, top to bottom, even though they haven't played at full strength yet at all this season with some of their key pieces missing time here and there. This is a very good team. Coach Hurley is one of the best coaches in the nation. He's proved that a lot of times the last several years. They are a very, very well coached team. They are going to be a very tall task for this Kansas team. So let's just talk a little bit about Uconn itself as a whole. Coming into this game, they are averaging 88.7 points a game, which is very, very solid. They're outscoring their opponents by about 28. Now, we mentioned in the episode, they haven't had a very strong schedule like Kansas has outside of that Texas game in Indiana. It's been a bunch of cupcakes, but their still scoring margin is insanely high, which is something to think about. They're also shooting over 50% from the floor. This is one of the best offensive efficiency teams in the country, just like Kansas as far as scoring the ball in 2-point game. Uconn shooting over 50% from the floor, which is incredible. 3-point shooting, they're only shooting about 30%, which isn't fantastic, but they do get a lot of shots up, and they make about 8 threes a game. So there's a lot of opportunity for them to score the ball. We obviously talked about how many ways they can score in that starting lineup. They've got 5 guys averaging north of 10 points right now. Even though we won't see Stevan Castle, they still have a lot of offensive firepower. Free throw line's another big advantage for them. They get about 17 to 18 free throws a game. Again, that's going to be a big focal point we'll talk about here. Rebounding, they're a very good rebounding team, 43 rebounds a game. But the kicker here is their margin. They're out-rebounding opponents by about 16 rebounds a game, which if you guys look back at that Eastern Illinois game where KU got out-rebounded, that's a big concern there. They also average about 20 assists per game, 19 right there, so they get everyone involved. They also force quite a bit of turnovers, pretty solid there. And they score about 17 points a game off of those turnovers. So that's another focal point. And then, yeah, like we said, they've got a very, very good team. Without Stevan Castle coming into this matchup, one of their top recruits who's probably going to be a lottery pick in next year's draft. So again, advantage Kansas there. But however, like a lot of you said, this is a very, very good Uconn team. And there's a lot on that roster still. Some left over from the national championship run last year, but just some high quality pieces. You know, we talked about Alex Caravan. He could go off for 20 any given night. He's a very good shooter for his size, can space the floor. Donovan Clingan, one of the guys on the short list for player of the year candidates, just like Hunter Dickinson. So battle of the bigs, again, as we talked about in that last episode, they've got their 7-footer on their side. Also some good bench pieces behind him and Johnson that can still run the floor. Tristan Newton, like Spencer mentioned last episode, a very good scorer, kind of that Kevin McCullough type that can score from multiple levels, but also is just very active and involved in the game. And then, of course, Spencer, who can shoot and defend. So really, really good team. That being said, I know we didn't dive into it much in that episode. Really, we just want to touch on how Kansas has looked so far and what they need to do in this game. So let's just kind of dive in here real quick to my keys to the game personally. I think there's a lot of things we need to talk about, but one of the biggest struggles I think we've had coming into the year is my most important key or one of my most important keys to this game. And this is an aspect of the game that we thought we would be much better at already just because of the returning starters, Kevin McCullough, DeJuan Harris, and KJ Adams and their defensive ability. But for me, my first key of this game is team defense. Like I stated, Uconn is one of the most efficient scoring offenses in the country. They put up almost 90 points a game. Again, some of that being against subpar opponents. But KU really has to come out and defend, not just one-on-one. They have to defend as a team. They have to be willing to move around, rotate, lock in on their guys, close out to the three-point line efficiently. Hunter Dickinson really has to have a strong game defensively against Donovan Clingan. My hope is that the two of them almost cancel each other out, whether that's, either they both do the same thing offensively, 20 points each, and then the rest of the guys around them aren't as involved, or each guy just frustrates enough of the other one that it kind of takes both of them out of this game. But team defense is going to be huge. DeJuan's got to be locked in. Kevin's got to be locked in. I think we're going to see a strong output from KJ Adams in this. He's the guy that provides a lot of the energy on the floor out there, and I think he's going to be crucial on Caravan and any other guy he rotates through. But they got to move their feet. And really, I'm looking at the guys like Nicholas Timberlake, Johnny Furfino, Marco Jackson, the guys that have struggled defensively. They have to be prepared in this game. They got to play on their toes, be excited, close out, bring a lot of energy, because this Uconn team has struggled when there's been a lot of pressure forced on them and they turn the ball over, even though, again, they're still winning all their games. So that's my first key, is team defense. Got to lock in as a group, communicate with each other, be able to switch accordingly. Don't let them get any open looks from three. That's been KU's struggle this year, is guys getting open shots because we're not closing out quick enough. So let's just take care of business and do what a typical Bill Self team is capable of. And again, really, I'm looking at those three guys coming off the bench, plus Marco Jackson, as well as any Jamari McDowell we might see. Second key for me in this big time matchup is defensive rebounding. Like I stated at the beginning of this, Uconn is a very good rebounding team, and they are capable of scoring from multiple areas on the court. So we have to be able to rebound. That 16 margin plus margin that Uconn has in rebounding, we cannot see that, especially at home. KU struggled the other night rebounding. Kevin McCullough was not active in the rebounding effort there. KJ has only been averaging about 3 rebounds a game. It's kind of all been Hunter. And of course, expect him to get double-digit rebounds. But KU has to show up on the defensive rebounding effort side. I think Kevin McCullough and KJ need to be aggressive to look to go get the rebounds tonight. I think you need at least 15 rebounds between the two of them there, because that defensive rebounding, if we're doing what we are capable of and should be, that's going to limit possessions and second chance opportunities for Uconn. I don't want to see this be a game where Uconn's getting a bunch of second looks because of how well they can spread the ball out and score from every place on the court. So control the defensive rebounding as best we can. Let's limit those opportunities. Kevin and KJ got to step up in here. Probably need to see El Marco fly to the basket. I think Hunter and Clingan are going to be able to kind of divide themselves up there. But they still have got some good bench pieces that are going to come in and be active on the board. So can KU slow down Uconn on the offensive rebounding side and limit that margin? Because KU's margin is nowhere close to what Uconn is. KU, I think, rebounding wise, they're only averaging a 7 plus 7 rebound margin over their opponents, which is not very good from what we're typically seeing. So defensive rebounding is going to be key, because that's going to take away additional possessions from Uconn, as well as give us some additional possessions potentially there, which leads me into my next big key, and that is the turnover battle. Both teams as a team average double-digit turnovers, so both teams have not been great at taking care of the ball. Like I mentioned, Uconn averages about 17 points a game off of turnovers. So if KU can control that and limit their own turnovers, that's going to take away a lot of possessions from Uconn to get out and score. And then flip side, I think KU needs to do what they have been doing and force some turnovers. DeJuan's got to be very effective in the passing lane. Same with Kevin McCullough and KJ. Those 7 steals per game that we averaged, we got to see that hit 7 to 10. We got to force some turnovers, hold them to maybe a couple shot clock violations, something to create extra offensive possessions for us, and hopefully take some of those turnovers to get us into easy transition buckets. But turnovers are going to be important. Like I mentioned, some of these games, Uconn has struggled a little bit when it comes to the turnover battle. Like when they are not taking care of the ball, just like any team, when they're not taking care of the ball, they struggle. So can KU apply efficient pressure and find spots here to go after loose balls and come out ahead in the turnover battle? Right now, Uconn averages about 10 to 11 turnovers per game, with KU averaging about 13. So that's definitely got to come down. Dewan and El Marco have to take care of the ball. We got to see efficient passing on the offensive side. Make the smart pass. Don't just pass it because you're trying to force it. So again, some of these young guys got to be smart with the ball. But defensively, KU, if they can turn over Uconn, I think that'll steal possessions away from them to put us back in our favor, because Uconn does a lot of things really well. They get to the free throw line effectively. They get second chance points. They get a lot of extra possessions from their quality rebounding. So we got to be able to force turnovers to create those opportunities on our side. And then my last key, this is a pretty obvious one: home court advantage. I did not feel that in the game Wednesday night. I know it's not a big time opponent, but the crowd never really seemed to get as involved as a typical KU game. This is a big time matchup. Outside of some of the Big 12 matchups we can think of in the last 10 years, this is probably one of the biggest non-con at-home games we have seen in the last 15 years. Obviously, we all remember that KU Kentucky game from back in 2015 with Wayne Selden. That was a big time game. This is another one of those types of games where we might see one of the best teams in all of college basketball this season on our home court. So we got to take care of business. And KU obviously always plays better at home, but the crowd's got to be a big factor in this. We cannot let momentum stay with Uconn. They are too well coached of a team to make mental mistakes. So if we can create that energy, feed off that energy as a crowd, get the guys excited, and let that energy roll into the team, I think that's going to be absolutely crucial. So those are my keys to the game. Plenty more, obviously. I mean, we could sit here all day and talk about what KU needs to do better. They've got to be able to shoot the three better. They also have to be able to defend a three better. But to me, those are my top keys to this game. As far as individual matchups, I said it earlier, I think Kevin McCullough needs to have a huge game on all sides of the ball. He's got to average close to 8 to 9 rebounds tonight. He's got to get in double-digit scoring. He's probably going to have to find a few possessions here and there to take over the game and kind of leave his stamp on it, not just defensively, but also offensively. Also looking at KJ Adams, again, to be that spark plug, that energy guy. KU is efficient when KJ is actively involved. And if the battle of the 7-footers is, kind of eliminating and canceling themselves out, to me, KJ's that next guy. Can he use his athleticism and his strength over a guy like Caravan to find opportunities to score in the paint, maybe attack the rim a little bit, get guys into foul trouble, get to the line, and just show his aggressiveness that he has? So I think that's key. And of course, DeJuan Harris. This is, to me, this is one of those classic games that's circling a DeJuan Harris type impact. Maybe that's not double-digit points, but I think he's got to look to be aggressive offensively, to attack the paint, find guys open looks, or look to get his shot when able to. And then, I'm still curious how the 7-footer matchups are going to look. I think Hunter's got a better ability to step out and move. So maybe we can get Klingon out of the paint. Last couple of years, KU's really struggled when attacking the paint against long athletic teams. Everyone knows that. Texas gets us every year in that matchup like that. Klingon's 7'2". They've got a backup guy that's about 6'10", but long armed. So they're an athletic team in the paint. So maybe Hunter moving around, we do some high-low, get KJ backing down the paint with Hunter on the elbow. Maybe that'll pull Klingon out a little bit to find some driving lanes. But yeah, look to some of the athleticism of KU to hopefully show up in this game. I think Johnny Furphy could also get some nice run on the wing with some of his size and athleticism. But all in all, I think this is going to be a fun game. I really don't have a great prediction scoring wise. Like I said in yesterday's episode, this could be a high scoring game. It could be a struggle. To me, I think it really depends on how each team's play style goes. Are they going to feed the ball to their 7-footers? How are those 7-footers going to fare with each other? If they're both scoring efficiently, then I think this could be a very high scoring game. But to me, I feel like this is going to be a game where Kevin and KJ have to handle a large portion of the offensive workload, because I think there's going to be some struggle. Hunter Dickinson hasn't been bad at all this year. He's been really good, but he hasn't had to go up against that many opportunities of a guy that's just the same size or bigger than him. And I think back to that Marquette game where, Idrogo played really well against us. But Hunter still got a lot of opportunity. So how is Hunter going to look against another guy his size? Which, I wish we would have had that Purdue matchup, because I think everybody would have loved to see Hunter against Zach Edey again, this time in a KU uniform. But Hunter wasn't great in that game. He was 5 for 10, still scored double-digit points, but 5 for 10, only got 10 looks. That's not great against Marquette. Idrogo was Iguodaro. I'm saying his name wrong. Iguodaro was really good in that game. He got 15 shots up and 21 points. So I'm honing in on that matchup. Very curious to see how Hunter does there, because if he struggles, then KJ and Kevin got to find a way to step up and steal some offensive possession. So I think that's going to wrap up for this one. Just wanted to touch a little bit more on this game since we didn't dive into it as much in yesterday's episode. But thank you guys so much for checking that one out. Had a great turnout for viewership on that. Got a couple of subscribers out of it. So thank you guys so much for that. I hope in this one you got a little bit more insight on our feelings on this game. But yeah, this is going to be a fun one. This is a big time college basketball matchup early in the season. Two of the top teams. This is a real chance for KU to prove to the nation that we are as good as everyone thinks we are. Because I think coming into this game, there's a lot more questions about KU as a top team than there are about UConn. So this is a chance for us to let the talk of Kansas basketball prove itself through our play style. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I think it's going to be a great matchup. We'll probably have some sort of recap sometime over the weekend, win or lose, just to talk about this game. But that'll wrap it up for this one. Again, you can find us over on Spotify and YouTube, especially here on YouTube. If you're watching, hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate that. We're on our way to 250 subscribers, and we are inching closer day by day. And you guys have been tremendous in helping us get there. So thank you guys for joining us in this one. As always, rock chalk, and let's go get a W.